The first voice you hear every morning shouldn't be the world's, it should be your own. The words you whisper at dawn will either become the anchor that steadies your life, or the weight that sinks your soul before the day even begins. Most of us wake up and immediately surrender. We reach for our phones, allowing a digital storm of comparison, noise, and chaos to flood the mind. We drift into the day like a captain sailing straight into a hurricane without a compass. But the Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Your reality isn't shaped by what happens to you, it is shaped by what you tell yourself before the world speaks. Today, we uncover 10 truths not as motivation, but as mental armor to help you reclaim your focus, your peace, and your inner authority. This is where your day is decided. Let's begin. Lesson 1. I am the architect of my future. Most of us wake up and immediately begin rehearsing the scripts of yesterday. We carry our failures like heavy stones in a backpack, wondering why the path ahead feels so steep. We allow the world to speak to us before we have spoken to ourselves, letting the chaos of the day define who we are before we've even stepped out of bed. But what if you realize that you are not a character in a story written by your past, but the one holding the pen? This echoes the core Buddhist teaching of karma, the law of intentional action. The Buddha taught that while we cannot change what has already happened, our current intentions are the seeds of our future. Too often, we allow the echoes of the past to chain us to old versions of ourselves, forgetting that the past is a lesson, not a life sentence. By practicing mindfulness, we realize that today is a blank slate and a rebirth. Whatever has been does not define what will be. Imagine you are standing amidst a field of ruins, the broken walls representing your past mistakes and the debris of old regrets. Most people stay in the ruins, trying to glue the broken pieces back together. But you are the architect. You look at the same space and see vision where others see limitation. Every morning you wake up, you have a new brick in your hand made of your choices, thoughts, and actions. You are not fixing the ruins. You are designing a new structure with a clearer purpose and intentional direction. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your mental energy is spent rehearsing old wounds rather than scripting new wins? Ask yourself, if I were to stop measuring my worth by what went wrong, what masterpiece could I begin building today? To act as the architect, you must set your intention before the noise begins. Each morning, before checking your phone, spend 5 minutes defining yourself. Write down one radical decision you will make today to move forward. This isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. It is choosing to use it as fuel instead of a cage. There is a story of a young monk who was constantly belittled by his village for his past as a thief. He went to his master, weeping, saying his history would always haunt him. The master handed him a piece of charcoal and a blank parchment. "The charcoal is your past," the master said. "It is black and dirty. You can use it to smudge your face, or you can use it to draw a beautiful landscape." The monk realized that the very thing that soiled him was the tool he needed to create his future. Like that monk, you must be bold enough to draw plans others don't understand. When you embrace this truth, nothing from yesterday will have the power to limit the masterpiece you are building today. You will find a profound sense of rebirth and the freedom to imagine again, believe again, and rewrite every lie with a louder truth. Let your mantra this year be, I release the past. I design the present. I build my future. The builder you are becoming is far more powerful than the person you used to be. Your future is not a continuation of yesterday unless you choose to keep reliving it. Today, pick up your brick and begin. Lesson 2. My peace is my power. We live in a hyper-connected world that treats our attention like a commodity to be traded. From the moment we wake, we are bombarded by the noise of expectations, the urgency of notifications, and the chaotic energy of others. Many of us mistake busyness for importance and intensity for life. But in this constant state of reaction, we lose the very thing that makes us effective. True strength is not found in how loud you can shout back at the world, but in how quiet you can remain within it. This principle is rooted in the Buddhist concept of upekkha, or equanimity. The Buddha taught that while the 8 worldly winds, pleasure and pain, Gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute will always blow. The awakened mind remains unshakable. This is not a state of indifference. It is a spiritual boundary. By practicing mindfulness and detachment, we realize that our internal world is sacred. When you protect your peace, you are not being selfish. You are being strategic. Ensuring your intuition remains louder than the world's distractions. Imagine your mind as a deep, still pond. When the surface is whipped by the winds of drama and social pressure, the water becomes murky and you cannot see the bottom. You lose your discernment and begin to react out of fear or ego. But when you guard the edges of that pond, the sediment settles. In that stillness, your vision becomes a mirror. You no longer rush or cling. You simply reflect the truth of every situation, allowing you to respond with power rather than react with weakness. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your energy is currently being drained by conversations that feel misaligned or emotional chaos you weren't meant to carry? Ask yourself, which calls am I answering that don't actually deserve my presence? To protect your peace like treasure, you must practice the power of the pause. Before responding to a triggering message or entering a stressful environment, take 3 deep breaths to anchor your nervous system. Make it a daily law to give yourself 10 minutes of pure silence every morning. No phone, no music, no plan. Use this time to sit in your own presence, teaching your mind that it does not need to live in survival mode to be safe. There is a famous story of a monk who was traveling through a village, where the people were angry and insulted him bitterly. The monk simply stood there in silence, his expression filled with calm. Eventually, a villager asked, "Why don't you fight back?" The monk replied, "If you offer someone a gift and they refuse to take it, to whom does the gift belong?" The villager said, "To the one who offered it." The monk smiled and said, "Then I refuse your gift of anger." Like the monk, realize that silence can be a power move, and walking away is often the highest form of wisdom. By claiming your peace, you reclaim your power. You will find that the wrong people naturally fall away, while the right opportunities align with your frequency. Your voice becomes stronger, your discernment sharper, and you move through life with a quiet confidence that nothing and no one can shake. Your peace is not a luxury. It is the foundation of your masterpiece. Do not lower your vibration for a world that refuses to rise to yours. Lesson 3. I don't chase. I attract in a world that glorifies the hustle. We are taught that to get what we want, we must hunt it down. We beg for attention, compete for recognition, and exhaust our spirits chasing validation from people who may never see our worth. But chasing is a declaration of lack. It whispers to the universe that what you desire is running away from you. There is a more profound way to live a way where you stop running and start becoming the very thing you seek. This shift mirrors the Buddhist path of overcoming tanha, or craving. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering stems from a desperate reaching for external things to complete us. When you chase, you signal that you are not enough on your own. By practicing self-sovereignty and inner alignment, you realize that real magnetic power comes not from effort, but from embodiment. You do not attract by wanting. You attract by becoming a vibrational match for your own standards. Imagine you are trying to catch a butterfly. If you chase it with a net, it will always flutter just beyond your reach, sensing your frantic energy. But if you stop running and instead spend your time building a beautiful, fragrant garden, the butterfly will eventually come to you. It will land on your shoulder because you created a space where it feels at home. Your life is that garden. When you tend to your own soil, the things meant for you will naturally gravitate toward your light. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your energy goes into trying to convince others of your value? Ask yourself, am I abandoning my own peace to pursue a connection or an outcome that requires me to shrink? To stop chasing and start attracting, you must perform the inner work first exercise. Each morning, identify one quality you are seeking from the outside world. Perhaps it is respect, love, or security. Spend 10 minutes journaling on how you can provide that exact quality to yourself today. When you fulfill your own needs, your energy shifts from desperation to dignity. You begin to hold your frequency. There is a story of a monk who lived in a remote cave, seeking nothing but the truth. A wealthy merchant, hearing of the monk's profound peace, traveled for weeks just to sit in his presence. The merchant offered the monk gold and silk, asking, "How did you find such followers without ever leaving this mountain?" The monk smiled and replied, "I did not seek the followers. I sought the stillness. The fire does not go looking for the moth. It simply burns bright, and the moth finds the flame."
Right, like the monk.
Your job is not to find the almosts, it is to bloom. In your own sacred ground, when you operate from this level of alignment, you become magnetic. You stop settling for halfway love and stop forcing connections that drain you. Instead, you experience the freedom of knowing that what is yours cannot miss you. You attract people who respect your boundaries and opportunities that match your true purpose. The most powerful version of you doesn't run after anything. Stand still, rooted in your truth, and watch how the world rises to meet the frequency you have finally learned to honor. Lesson 4. Discomfort is my classroom. Most of us treat discomfort like a punishment or a sign that something has gone wrong. We retreat from the difficult conversation, shrink away from the challenging project, and stay within the narrow walls of what is familiar. But growth is not found in the comfort zone. It is a mindset shift that separates those who remain stagnant from those who evolve. Realizing that the very thing you are running from is actually the sacred invitation you need to level up. This echoes the first noble truth, dukkha, acknowledgement, that life involves struggle and unsatisfactoriness. However, the Buddhist path teaches us not to flee from this reality, but to lean into it with mindfulness. The awakened understand that discomfort is a signal that your old self has become too small. By leaning into the inner pressure, we use the friction of life to refine our spirits, transforming resistance into resilience. Think of yourself as a piece of raw iron. If you stay in a cool, comfortable room, you will never change. You will eventually rust and degrade. But when you are placed into the furnace of discomfort, the heat doesn't exist to destroy you. It exists to make you malleable. It is the heat that forges the steel and the pressure that forms the diamond. Every time your heart races or your hands shake in a new situation, you are in the furnace, being sharpened into a version of yourself that your future requires. Take a moment to reflect. How often do you ask, "Why is this happening to me?" instead of, "What is this trying to teach me?" Ask yourself, where am I still shrinking from a truth or a task simply because it feels heavy? To turn your life into a classroom, you must begin engaging with hard things like sacred lessons. Each morning, identify one uncomfortable conversation or task you've been avoiding. Instead of praying for an easier path, ask for the clarity to see the lesson within it. Commit to facing that discomfort first, sitting with the uneasy emotions rather than distracting yourself from them. There is a story of a monk who purposely sought out the most difficult terrain to meditate, choosing spots where the wind bit the hardest and the ground was the rockest. A traveler asked why he didn't choose the lush, peaceful valley below. The monk replied, "The valley teaches me how to sleep, but the mountain teaches me how to wake up." He understood that what feels like a burden is actually the assignment that reveals where his self-worth still needs anchoring. When you embrace discomfort as preparation rather than punishment, you become unstoppable. You no longer fear the storm, you learn to dance in the rain. You will find that the challenges that once broke you now only serve to earn your next level of strength and clarity. Do not wish for a life without trials. Wish for the courage to show up ready to learn. The soul that welcomes discomfort is the only one that truly becomes unrecognizable. Lesson 5. I forgive myself for yesterday and choose grace today. Every single person walking this earth carries a hidden weight. Words they wish they hadn't said, actions they wish they could undo, and moments where they didn't show up as their best self. We often wake up and immediately begin punishing ourselves for being human, dragging the wreckage of yesterday into the pristine potential of today. But you cannot paint a masterpiece on a canvas that is still smudged with the mess of the past. This practice is an act of spiritual liberation rooted in the concept of karuna, or compassion specifically directed toward the self. The Buddha taught that, while we are the heirs of our actions, we are also capable of radical transformation in the present moment. Self-forgiveness is not about pretending a mistake didn't happen. It is about acknowledging it with compassion, learning the lesson, and choosing not to let it define the person you are becoming. You are allowed to grow beyond the version of yourself that didn't know better. Imagine you are a traveler trying to reach a beautiful mountain peak, but you are wearing a suit of iron armor made of your own guilt. Every regret is a heavy plate that makes your movements sluggish and your heart weary. When you hold on to shame, you believe this armor is protecting you or keeping you accountable. But in reality, it is simply a cage that blocks your light. Choosing grace is the act of unlatching that armor, piece by piece, and realizing you can walk much faster and climb much higher without the weight of what was. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your daily energy is spent weighing down your future with regrets you no longer need to carry? Ask yourself, if I met my younger self in the mirror today, would I offer them the same gentleness I offer a friend, or would I meet them with judgment? To practice this daily reset, use grace as a foundation. Each morning, identify one specific mistake from your past that still haunts your inner critic. Visualize yourself placing that mistake into a small box and setting it down. Speak to yourself with the same compassion you would offer a child. I honor who I was, but I am choosing to become someone better today. Let today be a new canvas, completely separate from the smudges of yesterday. There is a story of an old monk and a young monk traveling together. They came to a river where a woman was struggling to cross. The old monk carried her across and set her down. Hours later, the young monk, visibly upset, finally burst out, "Master, we are not supposed to touch women." The old monk smiled and replied, "I set her down at the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This is the essence of grace. Recognizing that while the event may have happened, your spirit does not have to remain haunted by it. When you choose grace, you unlock the strength to evolve. You find a profound sense of self-liberation and the freedom to move forward without a shadow over your soul. By forgiving yourself deeply and spiritually, you give yourself permission to heal and become someone your younger self would finally be proud of. The future belongs to the version of you who finally learns to let go. Do not withhold the gift of grace from yourself any longer. Your past shaped you, but it does not have to sentence you. Lesson 6. I am the standard, not an option. In a world that often treats people as interchangeable or placeholders, many of us have fallen into the trap of negotiating for our own value. We wait in emotional limbo for someone to choose us, or we shrink ourselves to fit into roles that were never meant for our magnitude. We have become so used to accepting crumbs that we have forgotten we were made for the feast. But the moment you decide to stop being a backup plan is the moment the world begins to meet you at your true level. This realization is deeply connected to the concept of right, self-knowledge, and the cultivation of self-metone conditional loving-kindness toward one's own existence. The Buddha taught that we are the owners of our actions and the creators of our own worth. Being the standard means realizing that your value is inherent and divine. It does not depend on being tolerated or half-loved by others. When you walk in this truth, you stop interpreting someone's indecision as a reflection of your worth and see it instead as their inability to meet you where you are. Imagine you are a rare, priceless diamond. A diamond does not beg to be noticed, nor does it perform to prove its clarity. It simply exists, rooted in its own brilliance. If someone mistakes it for a common stone or tries to trade it for a trifle, the diamond does not lose its value. The observer simply loses the privilege of owning it. You are that prize. You do not need to negotiate with those who cannot see your light. You simply stand tall in your own unwavering clarity. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your energy goes into proving yourself to people who only reach out when it is convenient for them? Ask yourself, am I allowing others to breadcrumb me with inconsistent affection while I sacrifice my own sense of peace? To embody the standard, you must raise the bar in your daily life. Every morning, identify one boundary you have allowed to be crossed, whether in a friendship, a relationship, or at work. Commit to holding that boundary quietly, confidently, and consistently. Choose to be emotionally unavailable to anyone who cannot meet you with intentionality, effort. In truth, there is a story of a monk who was offered a position of great power in the king's court. Provided he changed his teachings to flatter the monarch, the monk declined, continuing to sit in his simple forest hut. When the king's messenger asked why he would refuse such a high option, the monk replied, "The king offers me a seat at his table, but I already sit on the throne of my own soul." He understood. That being the standard means you do not wait for the world to approve of your healing or your worth. You carry yourself like the standard. You create a sacred ground where your real worth begins to bloom. You will find that the wrong people naturally fall away. Dawn. And you begin to attract those who match your frequency, your standards, and your self-love. This leads to a life of earned confidence and the fulfillment that comes from never settling for less than full presence and full commitment. You have survived too much and grown too far to accept anything less than the recognition of your divine worth. Stand firm in your knowing the world will eventually rise to meet you. Lesson 7. Focus is my freedom. We are currently living through a global epidemic of distraction. Our attention is being pulled in 1,000 different directions by notifications, by other people's opinions, and by the frantic urge to control things that are entirely out of our hands. We feel exhausted not because we are doing too much, but because we are focused on the wrong things. We have forgotten that your attention is your most valuable currency. Where you spend it is where you build your life. This principle is the cornerstone of samasati, or right mindfulness, and samasamadhi. Right concentration, 2 vital steps of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha taught that the mind is like a wild elephant. Left untrained, it will trample everything in its path, creating suffering and chaos. But a focused mind is a free mind. When you stop leaking your energy into what-ifs and they-sighs, you reclaim the power to direct your life toward enlightenment and purpose. Freedom isn't the ability to do anything. It's the power to focus on the right thing. Think of your daily energy as the sun's rays. Scattered, they are warm and pleasant, but they lack the power to change anything. However, when those same rays are passed through a magnifying glass, a lens of absolute focus, they can start a fire. Most people are living scattered lives, spreading their light so thin that they never feel the heat of their own potential. When you narrow your focus, you become the lens that can burn through any obstacle. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your daily energy goes into monitoring the lives of others, or worrying about outcomes you cannot influence? Ask yourself, if I withdrew my attention from everything that doesn't serve my growth, what could I achieve by sunset? To reclaim your freedom, practice the rule of 3 priorities every morning. Before the world asks for your time, identify 3 and only 3 tasks, or intentions that align with your core values. Commit to single tasking. When you eat, eat. When you work, work. When you listen, listen. By refusing to fragment your soul through multitasking, you train your brain to find peace in the present moment. There is a story of a young monk who was struggling to find enlightenment because his mind was always wandering to the comforts of his old home. His master handed him a bowl filled to the very brim with oil and told him to walk through a crowded, noisy marketplace without spilling a single drop. If he succeeded, he would earn the secret to freedom. The monk returned hours later, the bowl still full. The master asked, "Did you see the dancers? Did you hear the music?" The monk replied, "I saw only the oil." The master smiled. That is the path to freedom. When your purpose is clear, the noise of the world becomes invisible. When you master your focus, you cease to be a victim of circumstance. You gain a sharp, crystalline clarity that allows you to work faster, heal deeper, and live more intentionally. You will find that anxiety dissolves in the face of presence, and you finally experience the fulfillment of seeing your deepest visions take actual shape in the physical world. Your focus is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Stop giving away your power to things that do not deserve your presence. Today, decide to be the master of your own attention. Lesson 8. Everything. I need is already within me. We spend the majority of our lives looking outward, convinced that the missing piece of our happiness is hidden in the next promotion, the next relationship, or the next purchase. We treat ourselves like unfinished projects, constantly seeking a permission slip from the world to finally feel worthy or secure. But this external search is a race with no finish line. The truth we often ignore is that you aren't a puzzle missing a piece. You are the source. Temporarily obscured by the clouds of your own seeking, this realization is central to the concept of Tathogatagarbha, or Buddha nature. The Buddha taught that every sentient being already possesses the seed of enlightenment, wisdom, and infinite peace. We do not acquire wisdom from the outside. We uncover it from within. Most of our suffering comes from a vidi ignorance of our own true nature. When you tell yourself everything I need is already within me, you aren't just using an affirmation. You are acknowledging the ancient truth that your strength is inherent, not earned. Imagine a magnificent golden statue that has been covered in thick gray clay to protect it from invading armies. Over centuries, people forgot the gold was there and began to believe the statue was just a dull, heavy block of mud. Many of us live like that clay. We see our flaws, our fears, and our scars, and we think that is all we are. But beneath the clay of your conditioning and your doubts, there is a solid gold foundation that has never been broken. Your journey isn't about adding gold. It's about chipping away the clay to reveal the brilliance that was always there. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your energy goes into seeking validation from people who don't even know their own worth? Ask yourself, if I stopped believing I was broken, how would I walk, talk, and lead my life today? To activate your inner abundance, practice the morning inventory of sovereignty. Instead of listing what you lack, spend 5 minutes identifying 3 internal resources you already possess, such as your resilience, your capacity to learn, or your ability to breathe through a storm. When you feel a sense of lack during the day, place your hand on your heart and remind yourself, I am the source, not the seeker. This simple act shifts your brain from a state of scarcity to a state of wholeness. There is a story of a monk who spent 20 years traveling 2 distant lands to find the ultimate truth. He climbed the highest peaks and studied with the most famous scholars, but his heart remained restless. Finally, he returned home and sat under the same tree he had left decades ago. In the silence, he laughed until he cried, realizing that the wisdom he sought across oceans was the very stillness that had been waiting for him in his own chest the entire time. He realized that the treasure map was actually a mirror. When you stop seeking and start sourcing from within, your anxiety begins to dissolve. You find a profound sense of self-reliance and the freedom to pursue your goals from a place of overflow rather than emptiness. You become unshakable because you no longer need the world to tell you who you are. You already know. Let your mantra this year be, I am enough. I am whole. I am home. Stop looking for the key in someone else's pocket. The door to your fulfillment has been unlocked from the inside all along. Lesson 9. Today is an opportunity to rise. Most people treat the morning as a repeat, but not mundane continuation of a life they feel trapped in. They wake up to the alarm and immediately succumb to the gravity of their habits, their worries, and their mediocrity. But what if you realize that every sunrise is not just a change in light, but a cosmic reset? Today is not just another day. It is a sacred invitation to prove to yourself that you are no longer the person who was defeated by yesterday's storms. This final truth is rooted in the concept of anicca, or impermanence. The Buddha taught that nothing in the universe is fixed, not the stars, not the seasons, and certainly not your identity. Because everything is constantly changing, you are literally reborn with every breath. If you can change your mind in this moment, you can change the trajectory of your entire life. Rising is the act of aligning yourself with the flow of life rather than resisting it. With the weight of your past, imagine a lotus flower deep beneath the surface of a murky pond. It is surrounded by mud, darkness, and stagnant water. It doesn't wait for the water to clear before it starts its journey. It begins to grow through the muck, pushing upward with a single-minded focus on the light. When it finally breaks the surface, it opens its petals, pristine and untouched by the mud it grew from. Like the lotus, you do not need a perfect environment to rise. You use the very mud of your struggles as the soil for your breakthrough. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your life is being lived as background noise because you are waiting for a perfect moment that doesn't exist? Ask yourself, if I live this day as if it were the most important chapter of my story, how would I stand? How would I speak? And what would I refuse to tolerate? To ensure you rise, you must practice the warrior's declaration. Before you step out of bed, sit up straight, take one deep, intentional breath, and say out loud, I am here. I am awake. I am ready. Choose one action today that scares you, one small thing that the old version of you would have avoided, and do it first. By meeting the day with presence and power, reclaim your role as the protagonist of your life. There is a story of a young monk who was discouraged. Feeling he was making no progress toward enlightenment, his master took him to a cliffside at dawn. Look at the sun, the master said. Does it ask if it is worthy to shine? Does it check if the world is ready for its light? The monk shook his head. It simply rises, the master whispered, because that is its nature. Your nature is not to stay in the shadows of your doubt. Your nature is to rise simply because you have been given the light of a new day. When you decide that today is an opportunity to rise, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and become a master of your destiny. You find a renewed sense of vitality, purpose, and unshakable resilience. You begin to build a life that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels aligned and powerful on the inside. When you rise today, you rise for every version of you that once didn't believe it was possible. Let your mantra this year be, I wake with purpose. I rise with power. I lead with light. The version of you that has been quietly growing through the storms deserves to see the light. Do not let this day pass you by like a ghost. Meet it like a warrior. Stand taller, speak bolder. And remember, this moment is your invitation. Rise. Lesson 10. I am the master of my response. We often believe our stress is caused by our boss, our bank account, or the person who cut us off in traffic. We live like autumn leaves, blown about by every gust of wind the world throws at us. But the ultimate freedom isn't found in controlling the wind. It's found in realizing that between every event and your reaction, there is a tiny, sacred space. In that space lies your power to choose, and in that choice lies your entire life's growth. This is the essence of sati mindfulness, combined with the concept of the two arrows. The Buddha taught that while the world may hit us with the first arrow of a painful event, we usually hit ourselves with a second arrow through our reactive anger, worry, or judgment. Being the master of your response means refusing to fire that second arrow. It is the realization that while you cannot control what happens, you are the absolute sovereign of how you process it. Imagine you are a great mountain. Storms will come. Lightning will strike your peaks, and heavy clouds will wrap around you, obscuring your view. But the mountain does not try to fight the storm. It does not move. It simply remains rooted, knowing that the clouds are temporary, but the mountain is eternal. When you master your response, you become the mountain, observing the weather of your emotions without being moved by them. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your daily peace is currently up for rent to people who don't even care about you? Ask yourself, am I a person who reacts out of habit, or a person who responds out of wisdom? Practice the 3-second sovereignty rule. Today, when someone or something triggers you, physically step back and count to 3. In those 3 seconds, ask yourself, does this deserve my energy, or am I giving away my power? By inserting this gap, you stop being a slave to your impulses and start being the master of your character. There is a story of a Zen master whose reputation was slandered by an entire village. When they came to his door to yell at him, he simply said, "Is that so?" When they eventually realized they were wrong and came to apologize, he again simply said, "Is that so?" He did not let their praise inflate him, nor their blame break him. He remained the master of his inner state, regardless of the noise outside his door. He knew that the only person who can truly disturb your peace is you. When you master your response, you become unshakable. You gain a level of emotional intelligence that makes you a leader in your own life. You will find that you have more energy, less regret, and a profound sense of inner stability that allows you to remain calm while everyone else is panicking. The world can take your time, your money, or your comfort, but it can never take your response unless you hand it over. Today, keep the keys to your kingdom in your own pocket. The bridge between the life you have and the life you want is built by the words you speak in the silence of the morning. You are no longer a passenger in your own mind. You are the pilot. These 9 truths are not just words, they are your spiritual armor. Carry them with you, and watch as the world begins to mirror the strength you found within. Your journey doesn't end here. It begins with the next breath you take. Go out and command your day. If this message moved you, hit the like button and subscribe to join our community of seekers. Tell us in the comments. Which of these 9 truths did you need to hear most today? Let's support each other in the climb.